Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Day 2 of the NFL Draft. Rounds 2 and 3 of the draft scheduled downtown Cleveland. Round 2 gets underway at 7 o'clock, just a few hours away. We will talk plenty about that. It is a draft preview again as we get ready for the second and third rounds of the NFL Draft. We will also recap the first round. Browns got a cornerback. We will be joined by Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as Jeff Risdon from Brownswire.com a little bit later in the show. Browns got the cornerback, probably one of the 4 they had ranked as worthy of that 26th pick overall, Greg Newsome from Northwestern. And in his mind, best cornerback in the draft, a cornerback's mentality. Take a listen to Greg Newsome.
I still believe that I am the best corner in the draft. And, obviously Cleveland picked me for a reason. And, everything happens for a reason. So God put me in this place to go to Cleveland. And, I'm just ready to give it my all for Cleveland every single day. And, that fan base. I just can't wait to get to Cleveland and get ready to work. A goal of mine is definitely to start in the National Football League. Do I think that coach is just giving me the job? No way. I think I'm going to have to come in there and definitely work. There's, like I said, there's a talented room. I have to go in there and prove myself every day. So, like I said, if I have to do and run out on every single special teams to do that, that's what I have to do. But being a starter is definitely something that I want to do, most definitely. But at the end of the day, I got to go in there and work, and I got to earn my stripe just like I did in college.
That is Browns' first-round pick, Greg Newsome. He is in town. We'll be addressing the media in about an hour and a half. Let's welcome in Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Doug, you like the pick?
Yeah. Once again, the Browns matched available talent and sort of obvious need the way they did with Jedrick Wills at left tackle at number 10 last year. That's harder to do at 26 than it is at 10. You don't know who's going to fall to you. Our Dan Lobby had projected Greg Newsome as the pick like 10 days ago. And I told Dan multiple times between then and Thursday night that I just didn't think Greg Newsome would be there. Because you start doing this stuff in the draft and it's like, he's fast, he can cover, he's big, he's got great character, he's a totally clean prospect. And it's like, well, then why is he going to be at 26? Like, he's at a premium position and he's awesome. What makes you think he's going to be there at 26? So it felt like there was a line of 4 top corners in this draft. And clearly Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn were the top 2. And then it was Caleb Farley and Greg Newsome. And if one of those 4 got to the Browns, and Horn and Surtain never were going to, but if Farley or Newsome got to the Browns, it just felt like it made too much sense. But I was not preparing for that. I was preparing for, okay, those top 4 are gone, then what? And, I had projected Eric Stokes, the guy who wound up going to Green Bay at 29. I thought maybe he would be the pick for the Browns. I wonder if the other 4, if Newsome was gone, would the Browns have gone that way? Would they have gone to a different position? But once Newsome was there, and you could see it coming the way the draft unfolded, the top 2 corners went in the top 10, and that felt like bad news for the Browns. And then, no corner went for the next 10 picks. And it was like, okay, now this is good news for the Browns. And once Newsome got close, I think a lot of people watching the draft, a lot of Browns fans zeroed in, and then it felt easy.
Yeah, and in listening to Andrew Berry as well as Kevin Stefanski, it was their guy. They were happy. Take a listen to Andrew Berry explaining the pick.
So Greg, he was one of the guys that we targeted throughout the draft process. I think he fits really our profile for the Cleveland Browns. Here's a player who was a multi-year producer in a Power 5 conference, great physical talent. He's one of the youngest guys in the draft class, despite how much he accomplished at the college level. And he fits the smart, tough, accountable profile that we want out of our players that we really bring in the building. So we're excited to add him to the team.
And, Doug, when you look at it, the Browns know the type of players they want. Again, that's one of the keys to being able to build your roster and be successful.
Yeah, which again is like, why was he there? I mean, he's so clean. And I know he has sort of the minor kind of injury things, but even Caleb Farley, I thought it was a little bit of a relief for the Browns when Farley went off the board, because he just has a little more sort of serious, maybe medical stuff in his background that maybe it wouldn't scare you off of him, but I think it comes with a bigger question mark. And when you have Greedy Williams dealing with some a long-term medical thing that kept him out all of last year, that's a little bit risky. But it just felt, listen, Browns fans have seen this over time. You see the good teams where it feels like the exact right guy at the exact right position just falls to them. And it's like, how come the league lets these good players that fit needs fall to the good teams? I thought that happened maybe 4 times on Thursday night. Mac Jones at quarterback to New England, Najee Harris at running back to the Steelers, Rashad Bateman at receiver to the Ravens, and Greg Newsome at cornerback to the Browns. And now we're lumping the Browns in with those 3 AFC stalwarts that I think Browns fans have watched things like this happen to the Ravens and Steelers time after time. Like, that guy fell to them, and that's what this feels like. I'm sure there are teams in the NFL going like, man, I can't believe Newsome fell to the Browns, who kind of had a cornerback need, and he's a perfect fit. And guess what? That's the kind of thing, maybe you make your own luck, or maybe that's just what happens to good teams.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Newsome talked about working with the Browns secondary, and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski both felt the fit was there, and Newsome's excited to be a part of this secondary without question.
I think one of the things that appealed to us about Greg was that we thought he was one of the more well-rounded corners in the class. Obviously, he has the size, length, and speed that is probably every team wants at the position. But here's a guy who can play press effectively. They played a heavy dose of zone and off man in Northwestern, which he was able to do effectively, and he makes plays on the ball. And even then, he's tough in run support. So what we liked is that from our perspective, there wasn't a major discernible hole, within his skill set. He has a high level of competency across all areas that we value at the quarterback position.
Now, I don't really have a feel, but I know I am heading into a very competitive room. I can tell you that. All those guys are studs. Starting off with Denzel Ward, that's somebody that honestly I mirror my game after a little bit. So that's a guy that I love watching, and it'll definitely be great to learn, from a guy like him and a guy like Greedy. He was a top pick as well. So he has a lot to prove this season and things like that. So, I love going into rooms that are just competitive. Like, that's something that I live for. If I'm not being challenged every day by the guy, to the right or left of me, I don't think that's the marking of a very good team. Obviously a guy like John Johnson, he's a stud as well. So I'm definitely going into a secondary that got a lot of swagger. I just can't wait to play with those guys.
And Doug, you can see how Greg Newsome would impress a coach and a GM in the interview process as well.
Why was he there at 26? Like, when? I mean, for real. This is why it's like there's no.
Yeah.
We did a mock draft on our Orange and Brown Talk podcast the day before the draft, and we took him 14th. It felt like depending how much you take into account the Farley health concerns. And again, Farley went ahead of Newsome. I mean, I think you could certainly argue that Newsome's the 3rd best corner in this draft, the 3rd cleanest corner, the most reliable prospect. It's a premium position, man. And it really is surprising to me that, we're going to sit here. We're not going to find, again, the little dings, right? And I remember talking a lot about Greg Newsome and trying to study Greg Newsome a little bit before Northwestern played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game last year, because that Northwestern defense is what made Northwestern go. They won the Big Ten West. The secondary is what made the defense go. And Greg Newsome is what made the secondary go. So Northwestern had another guy get drafted in the 1st round. He opted out last year. So Greg Newsome was the best player on a team that had a great year. And then he got hurt and he barely played in the Big Ten championship game. So I was really looking forward to how he's going to match up with these Ohio State receivers. And then he wasn't out there, and Northwestern kind of matched up pretty well for a while, at least, with Ohio State anyway. So that's it. But nobody's perfect, right? And it's just, it again, just feels like such a natural fit. And I think he's going to start. Mary Kay Cabot has made that point multiple times. Listen, he's a 1st-round pick. I think at times we've given Greedy Williams too much credit. Terrence Mitchell looked like a better player than Greedy Williams for the last couple of years. Greedy's been hurt. Greedy was a 2nd rounder. He wasn't a 1st rounder. So, this guy is going to be on the field a ton. And if he's got to win it. But if you had to guess now, I think you're starting outside corners in week 1 are Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome.
I would say that's pretty accurate. And I think another guy that would agree is Pat Fitzgerald. Take a listen to the Northwestern head coach talk about the Browns' first-round pick.
Nate, they're going to get the best corner in the country. That's what I think. I'm biased. There's no doubt in my mind that that's who he is. You know, I know there'll be a lot of attention put on his 40 today, but I know he's prepared for it well. But pop that tape on, you know, from a compete level. As a corner, you got to have a great demeanor about you. You got to have a high level of compete. You got to have the hips and the feet and the top end speed. But you've got to be able to be out there on the edge and be fearless. And that's Greg Newsome. And he's physical. And you know, I call him a unicorn. He's a high-level corner with zero off-the-field baggage. Matter of fact, it's the other way around. He's a great leader, a great captain type guy, and a terrific teammate. So whatever organization, you know, gets Rashawn and/or Greg, all these guys, but Greg's got the tape like Rashawn to back it up at an elite level.
And there it is, the organization that got him, the Browns, and that's one of the reasons they wanted him.
You know, this is what we were all theorizing, right? What could happen at 26? The Browns are so good. You know, everybody who sees me on here knows what I think. Third best roster in the league. Dave, I hope you guys are banning anybody who comes on here and calls the Browns a dark horse Super Bowl contender, because there is nothing dark horse about a team that won 11 regular season games, won a playoff game, hung with the Chiefs for 3 quarters, and got better. It's an insult to call them a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They are a Super Bowl contender. But I wanted 26 to inject something into that. The way Antoine Winfield and Tristan Wirfs, as a second-round pick and first-round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, helped the Bucs win the Super Bowl. That's a lot to ask of a rookie, but great rookies can do it. And I think when you get a guy like this, at a position like this, at a need like this, I think Greg Newsome gives this very good roster a shot in the arm. And maybe they could have gone with a pick at 26 that really was a lot more about the future, right? And I don't know that you could have argued, 26 is hard, but they didn't have to do that. He's the future and he's the present. I think he's a starter for a team that I think is going to be in the AFC Championship game. So like this just works all around.
Doug Lesmerises and I are going to take a time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear a little bit more from Greg Newsome. Tells us he addresses that injury concern that some people have. Also, an amazing stat about Greg Newsome from a season ago. We'll also look ahead to the second round and some of the additions to the Browns defense coming up. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Continue talking Browns and the NFL draft. Doug Lesmerises will be joining us again just in a second. A little bit of concern made about Greg Newsome and how he missed some games. Browns are convinced it's the normal bumps and bruises of football. Andrew Berry and the guys address that.
That's something that we always look at. We were very comfortable with it. Our medical staff, our orthopedic staff was very comfortable with it. Look, he was a little bit banged up, but this is also a guy that started since his true freshman year. And quite honestly, he's 20 years old on draft day, so he's still really kind of growing into his body and growing into his frame. But that's not something that we had major reservations, and more importantly, that's not something that our docs.
I think a lot of it, honestly, is unlucky. I've caught a bunch of horrible breaks, honestly, in my career. But, you know, the thing that a lot of people fail to realize is my freshman year, you know, a lot of people think I missed those 8 games. That's not true at all. I had an ankle injury. I missed around 3 games. But at that point in time, that was the 4-game rule. So my coach had actually told me I was going to redshirt. So I sat the rest of that season on practice squad doing things like that. We had a couple guys that were nicked up in the Big Ten championship game, so that's why I returned to that game. So, I definitely missed some times with injuries. I honestly think I'm just very unlucky, but you know, I don't think, especially that's where a lot of people come is that freshman year, and I really didn't miss that many games that year. So, and I'm also going 100% every play. Like I don't take a play off, but I'll definitely be able to fix those things going into the league. Hopefully, I think I should get lucky at this point.
Doug Lesmerises, important to note, started as a true freshman, so a younger guy that was beat up a little bit in the middle and then was going to redshirt. So that explains a little bit of the games missed as well.
Yeah, it's funny, college redshirting, man. It's like the dude was 3 years in NFL, first round. That guy was never going to redshirt. But it's interesting, Northwestern, Northwestern doesn't – it's not I think a coincidence that maybe Northwestern didn't handle that exactly the right way. Northwestern doesn't have 3-and-done guys very much. This is like the norm at a place like Ohio State. This is like a new thing for Northwestern. And so, yeah, again, and here's the thing, when you're picking at 26, let's say he had played every game of his college career, Dave. He played at this level and he played every single game. He's not there at 26. You don't get perfect draft prospects at premium positions at 26. So if you're going to get to 26, you probably got to have a little something. And like, if this is the little thing, this is a pretty good little thing to have compared to, you know, what else it could be. So I agree with what Andrew Berry said. Like, I think it's fine.
The other thing is, and this is an impressive stat. So Pro Football Focus ranked him with the best coverage. So quarterback ranking against him was the lowest in all of FBS, which is the major college football. That's something Greg Newsome takes a lot of pride in. Take a listen.
You know, I take pride in that a lot. You know, in our secondary alone, we don't like guys catching the football. Like, that's something that we don't like at all. And, you know, I feel disrespected when a guy or a quarterback comes at me multiple times in a game. Like, that's how I feel. I feel disrespected. I feel like teams shouldn't try me. But that's something I definitely take pride in. I don't like guys catching the football, and I feel like if I'm doing my job, stopping guys on the edge, then our team will have a great chance of winning.
Yeah, I think, you know, all the points that Andrew hit. I mean, he fits culturally, being smart, tough, and accountable. He fits schematically. He's got the body type to play man, to play zone. He makes plays on the ball. There's a lot of things about his game that we're really excited about.
And again, Doug, that points to your point. He comes in and does what he's capable of doing. He's going to be a week 1 starter.
I will dissuade us a little bit from banking too much on stats that are about defending the pass in the Big Ten, because nobody in the Big Ten can throw it. So I know he was probably covering Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, right? But especially the Big Ten West. It's like, all right, well, you know, he defended the Wisconsin quarterback and the Iowa quarterback and the Nebraska quarterback. And like, it's just, there's not as much there. Let's say I get Rondale Moore. He's in the Big Ten West. But again, it's just the prospect. I mean, it's when you go through the checklist, Dave, right? And that's what everybody's spending their time doing today. I think there's a natural thing with the draft where you get excited, you get the guys you like, you get fired up. If your team takes a guy that you like, then you're fired up, you're all into it. And then you start, like, the backlash comes a little bit. And then you start to nitpick. There really isn't a lot to nitpick. And I know, you know, the people who are on that call with him, the people watching this right now, doesn't he seem like a great guy? Like, what a dynamic, like, fun guy to have on the team. I think he seems like he's got a little personality. Like, Denzel Ward can be, like, a little bit quiet sometimes. I can imagine them, like, hanging out and having a great time. Like, it's just, he does seem to fit, I think, the player profile And then again, what you're talking about, character and work ethic and that kind of thing, when Andrew Berry talks about that, sometimes that's lip service, right? Because listen, man, you got to draft talent, right? I mean, come on. It's not the work hard NFL. Talent wins. But I think this guy gives them almost everything they're looking for, which I'll say again, why was he there at 26? But sometimes it's how it works for good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Browns are happy that he was. So the other thing is now as a kid, he played multiple sports, played volleyball, played basketball, ran track, played football. The way that he arrived at football being his sport is very interesting. Take a listen to Greg Newsome telling us how football became his sport.
A kid from Chicago, I thought I was playing basketball. Like, I thought I was the best basketball player there was. But honestly, the reason, that I chose football was more so it was put in front of me. I knew the opportunities, that football can give me just because, with recruiting and things like that, like there's more opportunities in football. And, I'm going to give all the credit to my mom. When I was in sixth grade, I was playing AU basketball, 7-on-7 had just started up, and my mom just took me out of basketball altogether. I was mad at the time, things like that. But, I think she chose the right thing for me. So that's how I kind of chose football.
Well, it certainly worked out, didn't it?
Listen, man, if you're 6 feet tall, you better be a 45% three-point shooter, have the best handle around. Like, you're not going to make it. So advice to all the 6 foot tall great athletes out there, you might be a first-round cornerback in waiting. And if you stick with basketball, you might be a backup point guard. So congrats to mom on sniffing that out. But I mean, that's the thing. You talk about like short area quickness, agility, the ability to cut, the ability to mirror a guy and then be physical at the point of attack, body control, speed, like all those things. I mean, if you take those basketball court skills and put them on a football field, you wind up with a guy who can follow a receiver all over the place.
Doug Lesmerises and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to look at some of the additions to the Browns defense in this offseason. We'll also take a look at where Doug thinks they may be going in rounds 2 and 3. What positions will the Browns address as they try to build out this roster? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. We can continue talking Browns football with Doug Lesmerises, columnist for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And Doug, when you look at the additions that the Browns have made to this defense, it's pretty clear they have upgraded the athleticism pretty much at all 3 levels. By design, do you think?
Oh, man, everything Andrew Berry does is by design. I don't know what he's going to do next offseason. It was like first offseason, reshape the offense. Second offseason, reshape the defense. I don't know. Maybe he'll get a long snapper next year. But, I mean, now you're going to be in maintenance mode, right? I mean, this was really like Andrew Berry very strategic, one side of the ball, then the other, very targeted, very specific. And the thing that I think, and we were joking about this on our Orange and Brown Talk podcast, is we should all start to get pretty good at guessing what Andrew Berry is going to do, because he seems to it's like, hey, we could use that. I think the Browns could use that. And then Andrew Berry goes and gets that. And it's like, okay, well, that seemed kind of smart and obvious. Okay. Then you do it again. So it's like Jack Conklin at right tackle, Jedrick Wills at left tackle, John Johnson at safety, Troy Hill at slot corner. Now Greg Newsome at outside corner. It's like, I'm not saying that, Dave, that you and I could have done it, because it's one thing to see it and it's another thing to execute it. But nobody's stunned here today. But, sometimes it's fun to be stunned. But I would say the last 20 years for Browns fans, being stunned has not been that fun. So to see the obvious thing and address the obvious thing, quite a deal. And I think he's done it now in 2 off seasons in free agency. And I think he did it last year in the draft. And I think so far in round 1, he did it this year in the draft.
The other thing is you've kind of touched on that. Are you getting more and more confident with every decision he makes? I mean, because he's not overthinking himself. There's something that clearly you look at and you say, boy, they could use improvement in this area. And then he goes out and improves it.
I actually asked that question before the draft last night. Because listen, right? We had seen the free agency stuff. I think a lot of the Andrew Berry praise and why people feel confident in him hadn't really been about free agency so far, the targeted approach to that. So last year's like Jedrick Wills, again, obvious at left tackle, took a good guy. There were some other tackles he could have taken. There were a lot of right answers to take at 10, did a good job. Grant Delpit got hurt. And then the rest of last year's draft, we don't really know, right? I mean, do we know how good Jacob Phillips is? Do we know how good Jordan Elliott is? Do we know how good Nick Harris, Donovan Peoples-Jones seemed like a nice little hit at 6, but we don't really know. But I think people still, for whatever reason, I think free agency, did have confidence in Andrew Berry. But I sort of was like, well, are we giving him too much credit, for draft stuff? But then Greg Newsome, I think, is like, no, I think, give him credit. I would expect him to do some very smart, targeted things tonight. So, there's not crazy upside reaches. There doesn't feel like a moment where they plan to do one thing and then some guy was available, so they just went that way instead. They have a plan and they execute the plan. And it feels like, well, if plan A is not there, then they have plan B. And again, I don't know. Who's going to argue with that?
The other thing is we've talked about some of the offseason additions. Don't forget, you also have Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit coming back from injuries where they missed the entire season. Those are 2 more pieces on defense that could, again, just move the defense forward to another level.
And people are counting on them, right? Now you're counting on Greedy a little less now that you have Greg Newsome. People are really counting on Grant Delpit, I think. John Johnson's a great addition. You hope that gives them 3 safeties, but if you only have 2, whatever. But there are some guys that I think we are kind of counting on. But it does show you, okay, if Jadeveon Clowney is kind of somewhere close to peak Clowney, and Grant Delpit, who's never played a snap in the NFL, comes back and gives you kind of what people thought when camp started last year, and Greedy Williams is back and plays like a second rounder, and Tack McKinley shows more, than he ever showed before and gives you that as a first rounder. There are some assumptions that we're making when I say things like one of the top 3 rosters in the NFL. That does come with assumptions. But man, if the assumptions hit, woo, that's look out. But I think Delpit's kind of the pivot point there. Because now that Newsome's here, I think you could survive without Greedy. If Delpit is not ready or is limited when he's back or something, it does sort of take away from this whole 3 safety plan that I think everybody's excited about when you think about Delpit, Johnson, and Ronnie Harrison.
So as we look ahead to tonight, rounds 2 and 3 tonight, where do you think they look? Are there any names that you're really kind of listening for that you like? Where do you think Andrew Berry looks to add to this roster in the 2nd and 3rd rounds?
I would imagine they have some receivers on their mind that they'll have to see if they get to them. I do think with the status of Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and their contract situations, are they both here super long term? It's a lot of money at that position. again, Donovan Peoples-Jones, that's a nice 6th rounder. They got Rashard Higgins back, but they're going to need some young talent at receiver. So I think you have to be aware of that. I saw a mock this afternoon that had Rondale Moore from Purdue mock to them. I mean, if a guy like that is there, I think they have to be aware. I still think, I think there was, Mary Kay Cabot reported that they did like Zaven Collins, who wound up going 16. There were some other linebackers they sort of were associated with. These linebackers who can also give you some edge rush assistance. So in my thing from a week ago, I had Baron Browning from Ohio State to them at 59. He is a linebacker. He can cover, he can run, he can hit. He's better at outside, but he also can give you a little pass rush help. He can put his hand in the dirt and rush the passer. And so, Micah Parsons went at 12 out of Penn State to Dallas in the 1st round. I think Baron Browning is a little bit like Micah Parsons light. I think I'd rather have, for the value, Baron Browning at 59 than Micah Parsons at 12. So I know lots of fans get excited about the idea of Ohio State guys going to the Browns. I just think with where they are at linebacker and the fact that he can play linebacker but also give you something else, I would keep your eye on him.
Yeah, again, it comes down to that versatility that this front office and this coaching staff like all over. They like versatility.
It's like, here's the thing you do, but also you could do this, right? That I do think that really matters. That Jadeveon Clowney is going to be a really good defensive end for them, and he can play inside a little bit at times too. Troy Hill's going to be their slot corner, and if they need help at outside corner, he can do that too. John Johnson's going to be a lot of different spots on the field. So that's why I think a linebacker like that, and again, they were linked to a couple different guys like that. I think that could be appealing. I think they need a little shot at linebacker. I think if Zaven Collins would have gotten to him, the way Mary Kay talked about it, that was a guy we spent a lot of time talking about, and it felt like that was a real possibility. So I just would keep an eye out for linebacker there. I think they take a receiver somewhere in 2, 3, or 4. I think they do add a receiver to this room, trying to look ahead a little bit.
Doug Lesmerises and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will take a look at some of the national reaction to the pick of Greg Newsome. Sports4CLE will be right back talking Browns football.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Two and a half hours in the second round of the draft will be underway. We are talking draft with Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Let's take a look at some national reaction to the pick of Greg Newsome. Dane Brugler, Northeast Ohio native, the draft analyst for The Athletic, a national guy who was on the show and told us he thought that Newsome would be the guy. And he says Newsome was just as obvious as Najee Harris to Pittsburgh, natural fit. Wouldn't be surprised if Newsome has a Jedrick Wills type of impact on the 2021 team. Let's bring back in Doug Lesmerises. Doug, Brugler's a guy that had the 14 top guys on his board were the first 14 picks. So he's a guy you want to listen to, and that would be a great impact. If he is a similar impact to Jedrick Wills, that's a huge plus for the Browns.
When you said we were going to do national media reaction, I figured it'd be some ding-dong saying something stupid, but I've known Dane for a long time, and Dane is the best in the business. I think Dane could, if Mike Mayock can be a GM, I think Dane could be a GM someday. So that matters. I think, and I do think the fit matters. I think we all see that. But man, now I kind of wish do you have any ding dong ones queued up? Any ding dong national people? Oh, the Browns made a good pick. What a surprise. I feel like sometimes national people sound like aliens to me when they talk about the Browns. Like Dane is smart. So I'm glad he's on this show sometimes and that we reference him. Sometimes, man, it's like I couldn't have less interest in what national people say because they're not caught up yet. They are living in the past. Like they're not, no offense, listen to me. Listen to Mary Kay Cabot. Listen to Dan Lobby. Listen to Ellis Williams and Scott Patsko. Like the national people don't know what the Browns are. Like they don't realize it. So I'm here, we can reference it, but that was a good one from Dane.
Yep.
But I'm sure there's some ding dong ones too.
Yeah, there were a couple. We stay away from those. Charles Robinson, take a look at this. Scheme versatile, big-time player. Very, very happy with the development of them going and being able to get him at 26. And again, there's that key word that you and I have talked about, the versatility and being able to play him in a number of different settings in a number of different roles. And that's key for the Browns.
I just got one of our Browns texts for our Browns text subscribers from Scott Patsko, who was pointing out that we know Joe Woods likes to play a lot of zone, and Greg Newsome is very comfortable in zone, grades really highly in zone. Greedy Williams, for instance, according to Scott, just does not grade as highly in zone, is much more of a man player. And so, again, that matters because they're going to do some different stuff. But within that versatility, the fact that Greg Newsome can handle that look that Joe Woods does like to lean on, again, I mean, sometimes I don't love it sometimes when NFL teams fall in love too much with this is what their college team did. And it's like, all right, well, that's what they did. But good players can probably do other things too. NFL teams used to do this with quarterbacks who were in shotgun. And it's like, dude, get over it. And they finally did get over it. So, I think Greg Newsome, he's Greg Newsome. He doesn't decide what their team plays defensively, but it's a nice bonus that he will be very comfortable in what Joe Woods wants to do.
Here's another one, and again, this one is really interesting. Mike Renner, Pro Football Focus. Again, another guy that's pretty well respected. NEC references John Johnson was his favorite signing, and the Browns' pick of Greg Newsome was his favorite pick. And again, that's an analytics-driven look at what the Browns are doing. We know they do analytics, and you and I have talked about this a number of times. Analytics is the way the Browns are using it is a useful tool.
No, you'll find a lot of PFF praise for what the Browns are doing because it is that strategic thinking that lines up with the way the people at that site think strategically. So, but I don't, you know what I mean? It's not like they're saying it because it's analytics. They're saying it because it is a smart move. And I think a lot of people there analyze football in a smart way. Also, I think that was the guy who was on The Bachelor. So that's extra cred if Mike Renner likes your pick.
Wow. So double bonus for Andrew Berry with John Johnson and Greg Newsome.
Yeah. I don't think he lasted very long, but he was on. So, my daughter likes watching The Bachelor. So I was like, there's a football guy in The Bachelor. So bonus points for that.
What do you think makes day two as big of a success as day one has been viewed in your mind with the Browns as you look at rounds 2 and 3? What can they do to keep that train rolling the way it is?
I don't think we'll know. I think we're going to, we know now, right? Everyone feels good about Greg Newsome. You see how he fits in 2021. This is where you have to maintain the winning. I think Greg Newsome helps you maybe get over the top right now, but you have to maintain it here. And for instance, again, and I've talked about this a couple times, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, awesome, right? At the top of that draft. But then, you get into some other picks some of their middle round picks lately are a little iffy. It's like, what's Mac Wilson giving you? What's Sione Takitaki as a third rounder giving you? What's Sheldrick Redwine giving you? Austin Corbett bombed out as a second round pick and isn't here anymore. You have to fortify, maybe not as starters, right? I mean, it'd be great if you, like a Joe Schobert, what Joe Schobert did as a fourth round pick for the Browns, that was extremely good. That's a lot to ask. But you have to fortify the areas where you're not going to be able to keep everybody. And so, again, I've mentioned it a couple times, but like what Jordan Elliott and Jacob Phillips as third rounders last year, who, you know, did a little bit last season, had roles as backups, they both might start this year. So that's what you need. You need guys not right now, but we won't know how I think day 2 and 3 went in this draft really until 2022 or 2023. But then we'll really know. And they have to hit a little better than they did, you know, a couple years ago with their mid-round stuff.
Fair enough. So some developmental guys that can come in and fill in the roster when needed. As always, Doug Lesmerises, appreciate the time and the insight. I am sure at some point next week we'll be talking about this draft as a whole and looking at how the Browns move forward. Doug, great stuff, and as always, appreciate the time.
Thanks, Dave. Always fun.
All right, Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as the pages of The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will be joined by Jeff Risdon from Brownswire.com. We'll take a look at his mock draft for rounds 2 and 3 for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues, and let's check in with Jeff Risdon from Brownswire.com. And Jeff, when you look at this, what do you make of the selection of Greg Newsome, 26th pick in the first round for the Browns, first round pick yesterday?
No, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great pick. It was something that we talked about it ourselves and knew that it was something that the Browns clearly wanted, and the fact that they stood pat. They got him without having to reach for it. You know, he fell to them. They played their board correctly. They were patient, and they got the guy that they really wanted. It's a great pick. It's a great choice. It was one of the 2 or 3 players that I most wanted for Cleveland. So the fact that they got him, that's a home run pick. It really is. I couldn't be happier about the pick.
Were you a little concerned when the 2 cornerbacks went in the top 10 with Horn and Surtain both being off the board before 10?
Yeah, that was definitely a concern. And then, there were a lot of other, you see, because Dallas, every indication pre-draft was that they wanted another cornerback. And would they take one? Would they move around and take one? And it worked out that Caleb Farley was the only other player to go off at cornerback. He had some injury concerns that I don't think the Browns were all that comfortable with. So the fact that he went there I sweated it out a little bit at 23 and 25, but he made it to 26, and I'm very happy that Newsome made it. And based on his reaction, he's pretty happy about it too.
When you look at day 2, so rounds 2 and 3, what do you think the Browns? Where do they look? What do you think enables them to keep moving it forward? There's a lot of momentum with the way they're building this roster right now.
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's still holes to be filled. They're looking for depth players, guys that could eventually become starters. I know it's not necessarily the most popular view. I think they're going to take an offensive lineman tonight, either a tackle who can be the backup, the number 3. Because remember, Kendall Lamb is gone. Chris Hubbard's coming off of an injury. There's an opening there to at least compete with Alex Taylor as the third tackle. So that could happen. They could also, if they're not real thrilled with what they have on the inside, get a guy, offensive lineman who can play guard or center, and sit for a year or two until J.C. Treader and some of the other things move around there, so they're ready to roll on that. So I think that's a priority. Obviously, wide receiver is something that I think we're going to see them address tonight. There are all different types, shapes, sizes, flavors, whatever you want to call it, of wide receiver available still on the board. None of them are necessarily the top end talent, but all of these guys offer quite a bit that the Browns should find appealing at that role. And again, that's another pick. Their top 4 wide receivers could be set for this year, and they'd be fine with that. And I think we, as Browns fans, would all be fine with the top 4 that they have. But you're drafting, Andrew Berry stressed it in his press conference before the draft, you're drafting for 2022, 2023, and beyond when the dynamics change, and I think you'll see a wide receiver tonight too.
So let's look at draftwire.com did a second-day mock. At 59, linebacker Bryant Browning from Ohio State. What do you like about him? What do you think appeals about him to the Browns?
You know, he's a downhill guy. If you watch enough Buckeyes, you'll know what kind of player he is. He sort of languished. They didn't really find a role for him until his last year. When they played him as their heavy Sam and turned him loose, and he exploded. He's a phenomenal athlete, still struggling to find exactly where he fits on a defensive field. But he's a guy, he could play the role that Malcolm Smith re-signed for, as kind of a guy who's going to carry the tight end and attack screens and things like that. I'm not sold that they're looking at an off-ball linebacker. I think they're better at that position than the fans think they are. I'll say, They believe they're better at that position than most fans and media believe they are. And I'll include my colleague. I know DraftWire is a brother site of mine. Luke Easterling does the mock there. He asked me. He actually asked me about it, and I said, yeah, you know, it's not implausible, but I don't think that's the way that they're going to go. I think if they're going off ball linebacker, I think they'll sit a little bit longer than they would for Browning.
Now they also have at 89 edge rusher Ronnie Perkins, Oklahoma. What do you like about him? What do you know about him?
Boy, he is a power to speed guy. If you watched Montez Sweat a couple of draft cycles ago and what he's done with the Washington football team, Ronnie Perkins has that same kind of, I'm going to blast off the line, blast both my hands into your pads, knock you backwards, and then get around you. That's his style. He's really aggressive. He's very good at what he does. He's kind of limited to only doing that. And that's one of the reasons why he would be available at that point. But if you're looking for a guy that's not fun to block, and is a guy that's going to require some tight end chips on him because he does have the ability to speed and dip that shoulder around the edge. You know, he would be a very nice compliment on the other side of Myles Garrett.
So then at 91, they have Tylan Wallace, Oklahoma State wide receiver. What about Wallace?
Big guy, big time playmaker down the field. A guy who makes a lot of acrobatic, athletic catches outside the numbers. Doesn't really do a lot after that. Again, there's reasons why these guys are on day 2 and into the 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds as we go into the weekend. There's reasons why they fall. He's a limited producer. He would be a direct competition for Donovan Peoples-Jones on the roster this year. But next year, you know, when the dynamics change and certain players might be here, might be somewhere else, he would fit into that role. He's a really good receiver, great body control, great tracking ability with the ball. Not the most physical guy, but is a guy that's going to go out there and give you everything he's got on every snap. And I think that's something that's fairly characteristic of all the players that are being mentioned for Andrew Berry and the Browns. Is that these are football dudes. You're not gonna have guys that you question whether they like playing football or not. And nobody would ever say that about Tylan Wallace. He's a guy coming off an injury. I think if he hadn't have been hurt, I think he would be regarded a little bit higher. in a pretty stacked wide receiver class.
When you look at 59, who do you think is a guy that that the Browns have kind of circled and saying, boy, we hope this guy is there? Similar to Newsome, I think we felt that way, Newsome at 26. Who do you think fits that role at 59?
You know, it sounds absurd because we've talked about him as a possibility at number 26, but I think Alabama's Christian Barmore is a guy, whatever is going on with him, he's falling further than you expected. And it doesn't look like he's mocked very often in the first 5 to 10 picks tonight either. If they could get a guy that a lot of us thought they would consider at 26 and get him at 59, I think that's a home run. Now, he is a guy that you do wonder if the motor runs hot on every play, which could be why he's falling and could be a reason why they would pass on him. But that's a guy that's certainly got to be under consideration. Another one is another guy that we consider a lot at 26, and I don't think he's going to be there at 59, but if TCU safety Trayvon Moehrig is there, that's one of those where you don't even answer the phone if people are calling. You just run up and give the card and turn it in and say, welcome to Cleveland.
All right, Jeff Risdon and I are going to take a timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll look at a couple of the national mock drafts for rounds 2 and 3. And Jeff will tell us what these guys could potentially bring to the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Second round of the draft tonight in downtown Cleveland. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Second round of the NFL draft in downtown Cleveland, a little over 2 hours away. Jeff Risdon and I are going to look at a couple of national mock drafts for rounds 2 and 3, and we're going to begin with Dane Brugler. And Dane has knocked it out of the park, and we had him on the show and had him talk about some of these. He had Newsome at 26 to the Browns.
He's so good at what he does.
59, he has the Browns taking Rondell Moore from Purdue, wide receiver. What do you know about him?
So he's an explosive playmaker on the inside. This is a guy who, when he's been on the field, has been very dynamic, great after the catch, really difficult to tackle, small. He's short. He's not small. That there's a differentiation there. He's very thick in the lower body, very difficult to tackle in the open field, knows what he's doing, can go get the ball. Problem with him, he's had some injury history, and that's a concern. But if the Browns are clear with him on that, he would be a very good fit in there. That's honestly a little earlier than I expect him to come off the board, just based on his size and his injury profile. But I'd certainly welcome that pick. And Dane would probably know a little bit better than I would if the Browns have some interest on that. So I'll defer to him on that one.
So then in the third round, he has a defensive tackle, McNeil, Elam McNeil from North Carolina State, and then at 91, Kendrick Green from Illinois, offensive lineman.
Oh, those are great fits. So Elam McNeil is a former running back, and he wears number 29 for North Carolina State. So it's weird watching a defensive tackle wear number 29. But he's a guy, he looks like he played running back because he can still move very well. He's very fluid. hasn't necessarily grown into playing the stronger body yet. He's a guy who's going to attack up the field. He's not a guy who's going to anchor. This is more of a Larry Ogunjobi kind of guy than an Andrew Billings kind of guy that we're going to see this year. You know, a guy who can step in and be an instant pass rusher, attacking the guard, either the gap on either side of the guard. He's got a lot of upside. He's a young guy. I believe he's just 20 years old, which is also what Newsome is. So there's a lot of upside with him. But again, you're going to deal with some growing pains there because he's only played the position for a handful of seasons, and switching from offense to defense and gaining. I think he's gained 75 pounds since he graduated high school. It takes a little bit of time for your body to adjust to that, but he's certainly an interesting prospect there. And then Green, great fit for the style of blocking that Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, and Kevin Stefanski want. Mobile guy, agile guy, smart guy. Those are the three qualities that they value more than anything else. And he checks all those boxes. Coming from a program where he's going to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder, Illinois probably should have been better than they have been over the past few years, and I think he would really enjoy being with the winner. And he's a guy, he can play center. He's probably best at center, but he can also play that guard role too.
All right, Chris Trapasso from CBSSports.com has the Browns going wide receiver. A different one here, Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan. Now, he's kind of on the other side. He's an older prospect age-wise.
Yeah, he is. He's 24. I've actually seen him play a handful of times in person. I live right by Western Michigan University. He is a dynamo. He is one of those guys. He is going in full speed instantly in any direction. And I honestly think he's got the ability to also be a very good punt and kick returner, and that might be his role, especially if the Browns look that way. He is on the other side of their age guardrail, so it's difficult to see the Browns taking him at least that early. But if they do get him, he's going to be a guy. This is a guy, he's tough enough that he actually played cornerback for a season when Western Michigan had a rash of injuries. And he was pretty good at it, too. So there's a lot to like about him. But again, he is on the older side, and he's also small. He's 5'9", about 185 pounds. So not necessarily the most sturdily built guy. But, boy, he is a treasure to watch his game film. Let me tell you, if you like guys that can move in any direction at any time, he's a fun one.
All right, so Trapasso again in the third round has him taken defensive lineman, offensive lineman at 89 and 91. Tugiai from the Ohio State Buckeyes at 89, and then at 91, Dan Moore from Texas A&M.
Yeah, the interesting names there. Tugiai is a guy that I can see fitting in as more of the anchor guy, even though that's not necessarily the role he played at Ohio State. He's an interesting fit. And then, when you're, again, with Moore, another guy, agile, smart, good, solid football player. Not necessarily the strongest guy, not a guy that's going to win a lot of street fights. If you're looking for that type of offensive lineman, he's not your guy. But he definitely fits the bill for what they're looking for on the inside as a guy that can start in a year or two after grooming for a year.
All right, so Pro Football Focus has a prospect to target for each of the NFL teams. For the Browns, they have linebacker Nick Bolton from Missouri. What do you make of that one?
All right, I'm going to harken back here to my youth and Northeast Ohio football. If you liked Chris Spielman and the way he played football, you will like Nick Bolton. They play the same style. Spielman was a little bit faster at getting out in coverage, but he's one of those guys. He's built compactly powerful, plays that way, hits hard, wraps his tackles, finishes what he starts on the tackling. Tremendous football IQ. He's a guy who sniffs out plays. He's going to be one of those guys that's pointing to the quarterback and calling the play back to him, and saying, "Hey, I know where every player on your offense is going on this play, and I'm going to stop it." He's a little bit more limited athletically than Chris was, and not necessarily the biggest guy, not the easiest guy to get off blocks. But if you're looking for a guy that can play the Mike linebacker spot in a one linebacker defense, which is Joe Wood's dream, he's your guy.
Jeff Risdon from Brownswire.com, as always. Appreciate the time and the insights. Be sure to check Jeff out, Brownswire.com. Jeff, thanks for the time. Rounds 2 and 3 tonight. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you next week to recap the entire haul for the Cleveland Browns.
Absolutely. This is my favorite weekend of the year. Day 2 and day 3 of the draft is my heaven.
All right, Jeff Risdon, appreciate the time and the insight. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you again Monday at 4. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, scheduled to join us. Make sure you join us. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you again Monday.